Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eric Hardrada speaking, co-host of the most based and thought-provoking podcast ever to emerge in human recorded history. And that's not an exaggeration. The Digital Dystopia Podcast. I am recording this to inform you that this episode will be an exclusive one-time upload on the Brandon Harmonti official channel, and our intention of posting it is to make the audience aware that, in fact, the Digital Dystopia Podcast has its own exclusive YouTube channel that you can find either by 1, searching it on YouTube, or 2, checking the description in every video, which contains a link to be able to find us. So grab some popcorn or perhaps a nice delightful cup of hot chocolate and enjoy the great podcast on the internet. Enjoy.
That was good, Eric. You recorded it perfectly, seamlessly. That was very good. You should be on the radio, man.
Oh, there's so many things I should be.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post this on my new channel that's rapidly gaining subscribers. Every time I look, my subscribers quadruple. Good stuff. We're going to have viewers, Eric. Eric, you and I, we have been podcasting for what? 2019 is when we started.
Something like that, yeah. Several years.
We had one viewer at the beginning, George. Remember George?
Yeah, I remember George.
And then we
lost him somewhere.
We lost him because we changed our name.
Well, we changed our name, and we're not disciplined enough to podcast regularly, too. I think that's part.
Well,
even if people tune into us at some point for whatever reason.
Well, they might now. So maybe you and I can go back to once a week or something once we get viewers. You know what would be awesome, Eric, is what if we made money podcasting? Oh.
Well, that of course is what everybody shoots for when they become podcasters.
I don't know if our podcast is good enough. I don't know. I like it. I think there's something good about it, you know? I watch a lot of podcasts, like small ones, and they're so boring.
Okay. Like, I don't know what to compare ours to is one thing.
They're like, hi, welcome back to the New Narratives podcast. It's like, shut the fuck, you know what I mean? You and I, every time we film, we're like excited.
Yeah,
we're so ambitious.
Yeah, all right. I see your point there.
So today we are doing, for some reason, Eric, have you noticed this about me? I'm obsessed with like economic models and communism and capital, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's because I keep seeing anti-capitalism is spreading amongst the youth.
Well, you know, I had a little time on my hands up there just now, and I did my very first research on my new smartphone, and I brought up something about Gen Z and their attitude toward communism and Marxism, and it was.
And what is their attitude?
Well, according to the author of the piece that I saw, those are economic systems that are viewed very favorably by a startling percentage of Gen Zers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm between a third and a half or something like that.
You go on TikTok these days, and it's just some 16-year-old sexually ambiguous or gender ambiguous, and they're like, today we're going to talk about colonialism and capitalism. And I just want to punch him right through the fucking screen. Just punch him right in the face. Because communism and socialism has killed how many? Probably over 100 million?
I don't know. Wait a minute. First of all, it's your question is almost meaningless. How many people has communism killed? What does that mean?
You know about the Holodomor, right? The Russian
yeah.
They starved all those innocent bastards?
Well, that was, you can say, was that because of communism or was it because of Stalin? Now, in your mind, they are one and the same, but they're not. Communism was a label they gave themselves, and it was something to distinguish themselves from every other socio-economic system in business at the time.
You sound like you're favorable. Are you a communist, Eric?
No, I'm not a communist.
Are you a communist sympathizer?
I am not a communist sympathizer or a communist fellow traveler or anything like that. That's not the point.
You will admit, communism is a failed economic system.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
It won't work, and it's
to the extent that it has been tried, it does not work.
It's so easy say communism started spreading in America, and everybody started to become a Bolshevik, you know? And it's so right for, like, authoritarian government takeover in 1984. You know what I mean? Like, 1984, that book is about a communist revolution happened, pretty much.
Well, the term English socialism kept coming up in it, so it's never elaborated on, and he never explains what that means.
Well, George Orwell was
George Orwell was a socialist.
That's so weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
Because in the book, he's like, and by the way, this is an episode on late stage capitalism. In the book, Orwell is like, when Winston Smith is thinking back to before the revolution, he's like, we used to be capitalism. So it makes it sound like capitalism was good and freedom.
No, it didn't. Not in my view. I mean, that's his memory of that period was so vague. It was so long ago, and so much has happened since.
Mm-hmm.
He only really remembers what he's being told by the party.
Okay.
So he remembered that there was something going on back then called capitalism, and he if my memory serves me correctly, he remembered even the abuses of capitalism, but that too may have been something he was just being fed by the party. Who knows?
Right.
I mean, what was going on in that book was so weird and, it's so dystopian,
mm-hmm.
and it's hard to tell what's what in there.
Well, you know what I think? Everybody, like me, I hate authority. I'm very libertarian. I remember we had to read that book in school. Like, they made... and that's
really?
Good. I thought it was good. Because I thought, oh wow, they're telling the children in my class and schools, hey, be careful. Don't let the future become Orwellian. So when you read that book, you become like an anarchist, and you're like, let's not... You know what I mean? But now I'm starting to think that book just was conditioning us for modern day.
I can understand where you would think that.
Yeah. It's kind of like, remember Edward Snowden?
Yeah.
He leaked that the government is spying on us and there's nothing. Like, at first you're like, oh wow, this guy's a dissident. Like, he's an anarchist. He's telling us to fight back. Well, guess what? Nobody fought back. I'm starting to think the Edward Snowden leaks were just to tell us subliminally, hey dude, we're spying on all of you. There's nothing you can do about it, you know?
And that message came not from Snowden, but from our government?
Well, it was just like, they put stuff in the news that makes it look like, oh, look at this whistleblower fighting for our freedom. But nothing happened. Nobody fought back. Everybody has accepted that we're carrying around 1984 telescreens all day. Our phones are recording us all day. And it goes into a transcript. And I say racist shit in private, so now they know.
Well, you better knock that shit off.
I'm joking.
No.
I'm not
okay.
All right, fellas. So today we're going to call this episode The Horrors.
Have we not been recording?
No, we have been.
All right.
We're going to call this episode The Horrors of Late Stage Capitalism. And let me say this, and you know this, Eric. I'm not married.
Don't tell me what I know.
Well, you are. I'm not married to capitalism, right?
Yeah,
like, you know that.
Yeah.
You even told me I sound like a communist sometimes.
Well, I don't recall that, but
anyway.
I
don't like materialism.
Oh.
I'm kind of
like... Well, that's at the heart of capitalism.
I kind of have like a Tyler Durden from Fight Club philosophy, you know? In that movie, he's like, fucking materialism. I don't like materialism, personally. But we're going to do this episode because anti-capitalism is on the rise. Capitalism isn't perfect. And I think, Eric, you lived through the great years of capitalism. You were a baby boomer.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So you, back when you were young, you were like, right, times were good.
Yes, they were. It was just we had just come out of a world war, and I don't know how we managed to come out of that so wealthy and secure, but we did, and we were the world's only superpower. We were possibly the world's first true superpower, and whereas the rest of the world was still dealing with the ruins of the war in their countries, we were. Partly because of our relative geographical isolation, the war hadn't touched us that much personally. But I don't know where the money came from to to enable us to have existed with so much affluence at that time.
Yes.
I mean, we were deep in debt from the war.
Right.
We that had to be paid back. How come we were so wealthy and stable? I don't think I've ever
I don't know.
an explanation, but it doesnn't matter. We were
Yeah.
we were wealthy. We were every times were good. Everybody was getting jobs.
Yes.
And a lot of service people were going to college on the bill.
You could buy a house as a janitor back then.
Yes, you could.
See? And let's juxtapose your life with mine. I'm a millennial. I graduated into the housing market crash, and most people my age are either still living at home, or they can't afford an apartment, or they can't afford the college tuition loans. They can't pay that back. So the reason young people are becoming so anti-capitalism is because they're like, well, my baby boomer parents lived in like affluence, and now look at me, I can't even afford a 2-bedroom apartment. You know what I mean? And the economy keeps crashing, and then COVID happened.
And you attribute that the failure of the system to what? Is it socialism, or the rising tide of socialism in the country, or what?
I attribute that, I guess, to capitalism. I don't know.
Okay, well, I think that's a good answer. It was. I mean, capitalism is as a system for generating wealth is unequaled. As far as I'm concerned, I think I've mentioned this before, and you heap scoring on it. As far as I'm concerned, the debate over which economic system is superior is over. Communism has lost. I mean, socialism has lost.
Well, it's scary because,
but
Eric,
I know you don't... coming back.
I know you're a boomer, and I know you've never been on TikTok, but if you watch these TikTok compilations, it's like, dude, these freaking communists are coming in through the window. There's so many of them. It's like a zombie horde.
Could be.
And I'm
could well be.
Who's teaching them this crap? Is it schools? I think it's schools.
I don't know. Maybe it may. That may be part of it. I would be as dismayed as you would be if that's true. But I think to the extent that these kids are even paying attention to what's going on in the world, they're getting kind of a skewed view of things from somewhere. And I would be surprised if it was in the schools. But
I think it is the schools, you know? Like, I don't agree with public school anymore. I don't have kids, but if I did, I would homeschool those little bastards immediately.
Oh, God.
I would homeschool them.
And I would pity those kids.
I would turn them into staunch libertarians.
Little staunch libertarian zombies.
Yes.
Instead of socialist zombies.
Before we go any further, let's go through some examples of late capitalism, okay? And by the way...
let's define it.
Okay, so we're talking late stage capitalism, not capitalism.
Right. So what does that mean?
Okay.
Is the latter stage of capitalism just before its crash or something like that? Okay.
So Karl Marx, as much as I hate that Shih Tzu little bastard, looks like a Shih Tzu, he was pretty smart. He said some brilliant stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He predicted that late stage capitalism would happen, which means capitalism would be good for a while, but then like all these Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Zuckerbergs, you know, all these people would become super capitalists. Like, Jeff Bezos, I bet you he sleeps 5 hours a night, and every hour of his day is dedicated to succeeding and to becoming bigger and bigger and bigger.
I'm surprised he sleeps at all.
Well, that's the thing, is now Jeff Bezos is going to take over the freaking world, dude. Bill Gates is buying all the farmland. Jeff Bezos is buying, like, Washington Post. So it's like, maybe this capitalism wasn't going to end well, because now look at Amazon and Google. They know everything about us. They're spying on us. They can control us. They can manipulate us. So a part of me is like, yeah, man, maybe late stage capitalism is a freaking nightmare.
Well, it is a nightmare, but it's a nightmare that capitalism has brought upon itself as much as anything else. Because capitalism leads inevitably to people like Jeff Bezos. Inevitably, there will be people like Jeff Bezos they they got to acquire ever more wealth and power, well beyond whatever they really need or even want. It just becomes a compulsion with them. It's a little bit of it was intoxicating, so they want ever more and more. And there is this trend in all corporations to strive for monopoly.
Yes.
And that was, that's something we've struggled with at least since the middle of the 1800s.
So do you agree with the laws put forth to stop monopolies?
Absolutely.
Well, they failed because look at Amazon.
Well, I don't know why though. Those laws, those laws go back at least as far as Teddy Roosevelt. He was they called it a trust in those days for some reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a trust was basically a monopolistic business model, and the corporations were called trusts. And Teddy Roosevelt was known as the Great Trust Buster because he was out to break that shit up.
Good.
And he succeeded to quite a degree. And he got a lot of legislation passed that put limits on these people and their companies.
Exactly what you just said. This is why I find it hard to be a free market libertarian, because what you just, libertarians basically believe don't tread on me. The government shouldn't interfere with businesses. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm a walking contradiction, because Jeff Bezos has become so powerful. He owns a newspaper. He's snuggling up. He lives right next to Obama in D.C. And I'm like, he doesn't even pay taxes. So I'm like, should we regulate him? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard being a libertarian. But here's the thing, is that I believe that if a corporation gets too big, like the CDC, they become governments. Have you ever heard that saying? That if a business, a corporation, or an organization becomes too big, they are a government?
I never heard it put exactly that way.
But you can see how that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to be like, oh man, well, hey man, Jeff Bezos, he's good at capitalism. He took advantage of the free market. But Amazon, sorry, I startled you there. Amazon is coercion. What's coercing? They're using coercion on us.
Yeah, coercing.
They're spying on us with Amazon Echo. Google is spying. That's coercion.
Well,
that breaks the non-aggression principle.
That's not exact. No, coercion is when you actually force people to do something. He's spying. He's surveilling us. He's spying on us. He's got more information than is any of his goddamn business.
The Constitution, search and seizure. You can't search and seizure. That's search and seizure. So this
Good point. I never thought of that before. But
this is the definition of the non-aggression principle. This is a big libertarian quote. The non-aggression principle says it is not justified to initiate coercion with force, threats, or lies. Okay?
Okay.
So...
Wait a minute, what is that?
The non-aggression principle. It's basically...
Where does that emanate from? The non-coercion principle?
It's just a big... It's like the...
Is that something like a part of a law? Is that a principle behind the law?
It's a libertarian principle. Libertarians believe we could live in a free society as long as we follow the non-aggression principle.
Yeah, there you go. As long as that's when you precede any proposition with that expressions like that, you're going over the rainbow, pal.
So this becomes the question: Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, are they using coercion on us? Yes.
By that definition.
Because Elon Musk, what does he want to do? He wants to put chips in our brains. And what? Are they going to do it by force? You know what I mean? Now countries...
As opposed to what? Talking us into it?
Well, they could. People are so stupid and zombified, they would do it. But some countries, specifically Australia, are making it so in order to get gas, you got to scan your phone. That's coercion. So... Basically, we should have, Jeff Bezos, get as rich as you want, but you have to follow the Constitution, the non-aggression principle. You know what I mean? So let's move on from that. But, okay, let's give the audience some examples of late-stage capitalism. Do you have any? Because I have a list. Okay. So, people, you know what crowdfunding is?
No.
It's when, say you get like a cancer diagnosis and you can't pay your bills, you make a
Oh,
little donation thing.
Right.
So people are crowdfunding their medical bills. The news industry got more fake and more staged, and now they're turning, like Fox News and CNN are turning us against each other. You know what I mean? So like the news used to be back in your day really boring and straightforward, right?
Yeah.
But now, in order to get their ratings up, they gotta like fake stuff and act all, you know.
Well, they don't have to fake or stuff or lie to us, but
They do.
Well, okay, maybe they do. You said they had, or did you say that? Maybe I said
They do.
that. Well, okay,
Eric believes everything he reads on the news. So,
everything.
yes,
Yes,
just about
I
everything.
question nothing.
Right. No, I'm joking with Eric. So that's one. The nosedive social media dystopia. So nowadays with Instagram and Facebook and social media, it's all a bunch of hot girls with yoga pants and buff dudes and hey, look at my house, look at my big house and my dog and my kids. So late capitalism has caused everybody to be an internet phony, you know? Like I know you don't get on Instagram and stuff, but everybody is a phony and they're just showing how I just bought a yacht, I just bought a boat. Fuck you, I don't care about your boat. I hope it burns down. You know what I mean? So another one is not being able to afford a home. Or if you buy a home, you're a slave for life. Which is why I'll never buy a home. I could live in a cardboard box, I'd be happy. As long as I have the internet.
Oh, so you say.
So, those are a couple examples. I probably could have thought of some better ones.
Well, wait a minute. Those are examples of late-stage capitalism?
Yeah.
You were discussing some of the aspects of what we can expect in late-stage capitalism, but who's calling all these shots? I mean, you say it's Jeff Bezos in collusion with the government, I suppose.
You're asking me who the powers that be are? I can't say it on YouTube.
Oh.
We gotta kind of toe the line.
I see.
Okay, Eric, I have a very good question. It's like a tongue twister, very hard. This is serious. So, Eric, you're always preaching democracy, saying that Trump supporters are an existential threat to our democracy.
I stand by that.
Do you believe that capitalism and democracy are synonymous?
No.
No, they're not. Right. Why?
Well, because they don't have to be.
Or they can't be. It's almost impossible. And you want to know why that is?
Sure.
It's because, say you're a rich corporation, then you pay politicians. You know what I mean? Corporations pay politicians so that it goes their way.
Well, in a capitalist system, with the kind of freedoms that democracy affords them, and intentionally or otherwise, can be used for people like Jeff Bezos to acquire political as well as economic power. Yeah, of course, he can buy power for himself and whatever he's got, whatever he has in mind for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it may or may not be as sinister as you say it is, but in a democratic system, that it allows the flow of money and power back and forth between all kinds of entities, and there's all kinds of schmoozing between wealth and political power. That's almost inevitable.
So therefore, democracy is a lie that we just tell ourselves.
Well,
to some degree.
Yeah, to some degree.
And here's another thing: is how can we have a democracy when the media is owned by the same family?
Well, you can't. If
Fox, CNN, like they're all
the same family. CNN and Fox are owned by the same family?
Not necessarily. Murdoch owns Fox. Who owns CNN?
I don't know.
Zucker, or something like that. Jeff Zucker. So
I've never heard.
When you look into it, CBS, NBC, they're all owned by the same corporations. So people are it's coercion, where we're being told fake news and all that. So how can we think for ourselves when the media is owned by the same people? There's no such thing.
Well, you can. That's not. There's quite a variety in points of view and biases in the news. You can choose one over the other, and which means that you're going to be more susceptible to the claims of one news organization over another.
Mm-hmm.
You may eventually come to the view that the news sources that you like can be trusted more or less through and through,
Mm-hmm.
and anybody with a different bias has got to be lying to you. And you may be right.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel that way myself. But although I admit I don't spend as much time as I should watching Fox News. Now the news that I watch quotes and excerpts Fox
Tucker.
and similar news sources quite a bit. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a feel for who they are and where they're
Yeah.
coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that totally. And here's another thing, is that, oh, brain fart. I think I just forgot what I was saying mid-thing. You were talking about the news and bias on, let's see, where are we? I lost it, Eric.
Edit that out.
Yeah, I will edit it out. Okay, let me clap. So then I can see it on the thing.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, is capitalism and democracy synonymous? Well, here's another thing to think about is, there's a phrase that's been going around. Voting is consent to loss of freedom or something. Voting is consent, because we always get some dickhead Republican and then some douchebag Democrat, and it doesn't feel like we have a lot of choice.
Well, we don't. I mean, sooner or later we are confronted with choices we can choose between something, but some other entity, some power has decided who we have to choose from. But, I mean...
And think about this real quick. Trump versus Biden or whatever. Like, maybe they got to where they were because they were getting the most money. So therefore, capitalism can choose who the prime candidate is.
Well, inevitably, when you enter politics, no matter how benign your attitude is, no matter how much good you think you're going to try to achieve, and no matter how honorable a person you are, inevitably, power or the running for office in even the most benign democracies, certainly ones like ours, requires tremendous amounts of money.
Yeah.
And inevitably democracies get corrupted, and at least that far. But what are you gonna do? Have you ever thought about have you manufactured in your own mind a utopia in which all of these problems would be resolved?
Yes.
Is there some system? Okay.
What is it? We need a libertarian revolution. We need to basically burn down the whole system and start over.
Okay.
I believe that.
Anybody can propose. That's the first stage in a solution to a problem, but it's not a solution. You have to put some... No, because you have to put something in the place of what you have just destroyed. What do you put there?
America back in the 1800s. I think we need to go back to 1800s.
1800s.
Yeah, in the 1800s, we didn't have, public school, really. We were still teaching our kids, they would do school at home. In the 1800s, we didn't even have IDs. And now, look, we have social media, we have to show an ID, we have to get jab cards, and you know what I'm talking about? I'm not trying to say the B word. So, we need to go back to where it's the government you can't get pulled over by a cop and just get yanked out of your car for no reason. The Constitution is moot at this point. Would you agree? Think about the January 6th, and let's not go on to a rant about that because we do it every episode. But some of the protesters on January 6th are still in isolation 23 hours a day. They can't even make phone calls and stuff. What? For doing what? For what?
Well,
they were just in the building.
They weren't just in the goddamn...
Not all of them.
You didn't want to start a rant. You start talking like that, you create a rant, pal.
I lied. Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead and rant.
Well, I didn't know that specifically, that they're being held. They're incommunicado, you're saying? They're being held, and they can't even request a lawyer or talk to friends.
Well, maybe they can do that, but they don't even... Dude, isolation is cruel, for one. Like, it's cruel to do that to a person.
Okay, I don't know why they're doing that. I'm not suggesting that they might have a good reason for doing it.
Here's the thing I thought about recently, now that we're on the January 6th topic. If it really was an insurrection, like, what were they going to do after they took over the Capitol, you know?
They're going to put Donald Trump back into the White House.
But they didn't have any guns.
They did. They stockpiled guns in a motel room somewhere. You didn't hear about that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I too was surprised that there were so few guns in evidence among that crowd when I saw them when the riots started.
But they were so peaceful. You got to admit that.
No, they weren't peaceful.
Some people were violent.
So well, there you go.
That's who the media focuses on.
Well, because that's where the news was.
Well,
you know, it's I don't know why you say that they were peaceful. I mean, they weren't all rioting. They weren't all
right-wing
crashing down, breaking down doors and taking craps on the floor. But the ones who did, unfortunately, they tainted the whole thing. If that's the point you're making.
But the biggest death, who was that lady's name that got killed?
Good question.
Okay,
I forget.
I don't remember. But the cop killed her.
The Horst Wessel of the January 6th movement. You know.
She didn't kill the cop. The cop killed her.
That's right. She was breaking through a window. She was part of a mob that would look pretty damn pissed off. And they were, I mean, the mob was, the more that this is a classic mob operation where I don't know what their intentions were at first, but once this thing was underway, everybody was just stoking each other and everybody was searching for ways to take this whole thing to the next level of intensity. That's why somebody started chanting, "Hang Mike Pence."
Who? On January 6th, how did they all get out of the Capitol? Did they just leave and go home?
Well, yeah.
So the definition,
except for the ones who were arrested.
The definition of insurrection is a violent uprising against an authority or government.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that would be like getting guns and like, okay, we're taking over D.C. now. It seems like they just went to the Capitol because they believed that the election was a fraud. And they just kind of showed up and peacefully protested.
They did not peacefully protest.
Compared to BLM took over a part of Seattle. Chaz, they took over a part of Seattle.
Well, then fuck BLM. But that was, what, 3 or 4 years ago. You bring that up a lot, as if BLM is rioting every day somewhere.
They did in 2020. It was a summer of love, man.
Well, then the cops should have waded into them and cracked heads. But there hasn't, that for whatever reason, it seems like they've been pretty quiet. I haven't even heard that term since then.
They'll be back in 2024 because the only time a black guy getting killed matters is during an election year. And a lot of these people are too stupid to figure that out. They're using you. Stop being used, black people. I love you. I care about you. And I do. I care about you, but quit falling for this. Okay. All right,
we'll see if that prediction comes true.
Oh, it will. I'll clip this, Eric, and I'll rub it in your face when it happens.
All right.
Okay, let's see. I was watching, Louis C.K., the comedian?
Yeah.
He made a good point. He said that, say you start a coffee company, and you become mildly successful, and then Starbucks starts. He pointed out it's always the second company that steals the first idea. They're the most psychopathic, just get to the top, ambitious, screw everything. You know what I mean? Like Starbucks. There were a bunch of coffee places before that, and they were like, hey, I just want to make money for my family and sell coffee. But then Starbucks comes along with these vicious... Starbucks will knock coffee companies. They'll put a Starbucks right next to a small coffee mom and pop place.
Well, I didn't know that.
They do that, and they knock and they lose money. They lose money.
Who does Starbucks?
Yeah, just to knock out all the competition.
Yeah.
Another example was Steve Jobs. He created Apple, and Macintosh are great computers. Freaking, I have a Microsoft. They suck. Microsoft sucks. So Bill Gates came along. And it's funny because at the beginning of the computer revolution, a lot of these computer like geniuses were very like libertarian, where they wanted open source. They were sharing ideas. Bill Gates comes along and puts a patent on his computer and just starts knocking out viciously all the companies. What's another example? Mark Zuckerberg. You remember before Facebook, there was MySpace. MySpace was fine, but then Mark Zuckerberg came along. It's always the second guy who kind of steals the idea and then makes his way to the top. I thought that was interesting.
Well, it is interesting, and I don't deny that happens. It's probably a pretty typical business model in today's cutthroat capitalist world.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? If you come down on people like that, I think you as much as admitted the contradiction earlier in our discussion. But if you come down on people like that and try to regulate them in some way, that's pretty anti-libertarian.
Yeah, it's not fair. I know. I'm a walking contradiction.
Well, the thing about capitalism is it's great in many respects. It gives people of enterprise and genius and vision a chance to make a lot of money, which very few of us take issue with. It's fine that people want to get rich and do get rich, but it also enables a lot of essentially criminals to to take the system as it is and use it to extort money from all of us and impinge upon our freedom of action and freedom of speech.
Yes.
So that's just what happened. It's because of human nature. It's almost inevitable. Once capitalism is underway, even in its most benign forms, and it didn't even start out in a very benign form. It very quickly became apparent that some kind of controls and limitations were going to have to be imposed upon the railroads and
Yes.
industries like that. And that's what TR was in the middle of when he was president. But that's why capitalism and democracy are not compatible, because sooner or later, one or the other, usually industry, capitalism, just gets totally out of hand.
Yes.
Just because of the uncontrollable greed of some individuals. I mean, they're gifted individuals in many respects. It takes real genius to make the kind of money that Fred Trump made.
Mm-hmm.
But he was such a fucking psychopath.
I know.
I look at Donald Trump, and then I think about Fred Trump. I think it's no wonder that kid turned out the way he did.
Yeah, it's true. And I think right now, 2022, we're living through the end stage capitalism.
Well, what do you think's if it's not stopped?
I was gonna ask you, what do you think comes next?
Well, if it goes, either we wound up living essentially in a corporatocracy, a monopolistic corporatocracy, which I don't know exactly how that. Well, it is happening little by little, and exactly what form that'll take when it has trounced all competition and running our lives. I don't know what life in a dystopia like that is going to be like. It's not going to be, but going to be kind of grim.
Have you ever heard of the term progressive tax?
Yeah.
Isn't that when somebody starts getting too rich, they have to kind of give a lot of the money away?
Well, yeah, it basically means the more money you have, the more money you're taxed for.
See, I can't even go with that because I don't believe fucking taxation is theft. I don't know. I don't know the solution. In my libertarian utopia, I believe we could find a way to stop this stuff,
Through libertarianism includes a plan and a structure for...
But we have to burn down the system, and we have to get rid of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, you may be right.
We need to do something. Maybe we could just put them on an island or something.
Well, that's kind of hypocritical. We may have to just execute them.
Or we could just charge them for the crimes they committed.
Or you could do that.
I bet you they have some skeletons in their closet.
I would love to see.
Lolita
I would love to
Express.
see some, certain oligarchs in our country completely dispossessed, and their wealth taken from them and put into something more constructive. Of course, there's no way that can happen.
Well, that segues us perfectly into philanthrocapitalism. Philanthropy capitalism. It's basically like kind of what Bill Gates does. He helps the
I was
Ethiopia.
gonna say.
And there's a great documentary. It's called The Corporation, and it basically explains that in the late 1800s, corporations became a person, a legal person.
Yeah.
That's why you can get sued by Amazon. Amazon ain't a person, but in the court's eyes, they're a person. But
That was the triumph of Republican politics, by the way. They're the ones who pushed that idea.
really,
Yeah.
those bastards. Well, now, like World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, they want. That's why you see so much wokeness. Like, philanthrocapitalism has led us. Every time you watch a commercial, and this may be a beautiful thing, I don't know. Every time you watch a commercial, there's an Asian, a black, a white, and a Muslim. Do you think that's a good thing?
Yeah, I do.
I do too.
It's annoying.
It is
It's
annoying,
annoying to
and,
me
and you
because
can
they're-
see through it.
Yeah, you can see through it, and I don't know whose idea that is, or what exactly they're trying to. Well, they're trying to appeal to as broad a customer base as possible.
Yeah.
And okay, well that's understandable. That's fine, and it's just, but it is. It seems to me that like the last time we spoke about that, you found this kind of disturbing. You saw something kind of sinister behind
Well,
it.
it's sinister because, and I'll eventually get canceled for saying stuff like this, but white people are on the chopping block, and that's undeniable, right, Eric?
Well, yeah, white males,
Yes.
most specifically. Well, it's
We're all
because
cucked out.
it's because white males have had things very much their way for thousands of years.
I know.
And now, there's a bit of, a little bit of turnaround there.
But that's
now-
not fair.
now-
That's racism.
Well, racism and sexism.
Somebody made a very good point. They said the term diversity just means anti-white. What do you think of that?
Well,
I mean, it's kind of true.
it is kind of true. Well, it's diverse. The more diverse a country becomes, if a country starts out very homogeneous, like America was at one time, it was almost
All white.
all white, all Christian. That was our culture, is white Christian America.
Yes.
And
And there was barely any crime.
well, that's not true. There was crime. It wasn't quite as. Well, I don't know what the difference was. It was mostly street crime and petty crime and corporate crime.
Yes.
And you could get away with it with corporate crime.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the dominant demographic that is in control of a country like the United States it's true. As soon as you start diversifying, and you could say that America became a victim of its own success, because this did indeed seem to be the land of opportunity. Everybody wanted to come here.
Yes.
Everybody still wants to
And
come
they
here.
opened the borders.
And they opened the borders, and it's the diversity is something that started happening, and once it started happening, it couldn't be stopped.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it should have necessarily.
Melting pot.
Melting pot. It was a great idea.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds great
I
in
agree.
theory,
Mhm.
but I don't know. But I never believed that diversity was the source of our strength. I mean, I can see the danger in it, because
Yes.
people tend to be tribal.
They are.
And they don't come here to melt this. But I'm sure most of them do. Probably most of them come to this country. I've heard it said, and I think there's something to this, that there's nobody more patriotic than the recent immigrant who's
Yes.
just taken their oath
Real-
for citizenship.
Quick side note. I have some Hispanic friends, Spanish and stuff. They are so racist. They're more racist than white people.
Toward who?
Towards black people?
Black people?
Yeah.
Well, that's been a thing for quite a while. They don't even. It seems like they don't talk about that as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, diversity can just lead to internal dissension and intertribal tension, and that all of that's on the rise in this country. and it could be one of the things that's leading to our doom.
This is a very controversial thing to bring up, and I don't necessarily believe it. One of my friends told me, he said, when you smell an Indian or a Muslim person or a black person, they
Smell them?
Yeah, well, you can smell them. Like,
Really? They smell different?
yeah, they do. Every race smells different. Even black people say that white people smell like mayonnaise.
I never noticed anything like that. I guess
Really?
My olfactory senses may not be keen enough for that. I've never noticed different people smell.
It's true, though.
Indian people smell like
Curry.
Curry.
Yeah.
I've noticed that. But
So, my friend had a theory that we're not supposed to mix together because of that. Like, that's like a evolutionary sign. I don't believe in that, but I thought it was interesting.
no, he's dead wrong about that. I mean, biologically, he's wrong. We're not supposed to interbreed with them,
With other races, yeah.
with other races, and why?
Well, if you smell somebody and you don't like their smell, like they're musky and they smell like a different race, isn't that like a natural sign that, like, ooh, get away from me?
No, not in and of itself. I mean, part of the I think this tribalism that we're experiencing and this xenophobia, let's call it that. That's a nice broad term that encompasses.
I'm a xenophobe.
Yeah. Okay. And xenophobia, I think, is actually a perfectly natural thing for people to feel. It's
Yes.
It's part of our evolutionary heritage.
Yeah.
And back in the Stone Age, it was almost a matter of survival that you had an instinctive mistrust of outsiders and people who were different. So we still carry that baggage around with us in the reptilian cores
Lizard
of our
brain.
brains.
Yep.
So and that's a hard thing to deal with, but we it's gonna. I don't know if we're gonna survive long enough to learn how to deal with it, but.
Yeah, that's a good question. How long is it going to take? Because doesn't evolution take a long time?
Yes, it does. It takes a long time to evolve, and it takes a long time to devolve.
I wish that... So I wholeheartedly agree. America's a melting pot of all different races and cultures. I really, truly, deep down love and believe that. What a great experiment.
You mean you think it's a great idea?
I do think it's a great idea.
It certainly makes America the most interesting place to live in the world.
It's the greatest project ever made. But the way that they're going about it, all this anti-racism and diversity and wokeness, what it is doing, it's pitting us against each other, and it's putting white people on the chopping block. Well, here's the thing. You and I, we didn't choose to be white. And both of us would probably admit maybe we have a little bit of privilege. We have to. Like when we walk into a gas station, people don't immediately look at us and go, "Oh, is that handsome guy going to rob me?" They're pointing at me because I'm,
Because you're so handsome.
Oh, yeah. So I think that basically all this post George Floyd anti-racism is making us hate each other again, and it's unfair to white people. So, here's the solution.
Well, I don't think it's entirely unfair, but go ahead.
We should teach color blindness. Like, hey, let's all be together.
Well, I think that is what we were
That's
trying
not
to
what we're
teach
doing.
for a long.
Not anymore.
I don't know. Maybe not anymore. I don't know what's You're talking about in the schools again.
Yeah, schools and
Well, I'm so out of touch with that, but I don't know what's going on in the schools now.
And here's the thing. I will never pander to any of it, and I will never apologize for being white. I am not a racist, and I don't even feel like I need to say that. I am who I am, and I know what I am. But they're going about it all wrong.
Who is?
Just the establishment, the woke corporate.
What's the right way to go about it?
The right way to go about... When I was in school, I remember we were all sitting in the library, and they read us a book about a black guy that bought a nice car, and he kept getting pulled over. So that taught us that black people were unfairly targeted by cops, which it was a book based in the 50s, so probably true.
It was absolutely true.
And they taught us black is beautiful, be colorblind, and judge people by their character. That's why I'm such a fan of individualism. I think the whole libertarian philosophy really comes down to individualism. You know what I mean? So it's getting sick, and I hate it, and I'm worried. I'm worried about my niece and nephew. You know what I mean? It's like they're preaching colonialism and white supremacy. Shut the fuck up.
Well, I feel two ways about it. I see what you're saying, and that's certainly something that can be overemphasized. I mean, we keep getting more books. I've noticed. I'm a little out of touch with the literary world too, or what's current in it. But when I hear about it, I keep hearing about yet another book about things like the LGBTQ ethnic experience in America, and how people of minority ethnic and gender and sexual status get treated by the still overwhelmingly white culture. And okay, all right, we know that. We don't need yet another book about that.
Yeah.
That's, you can overdo it. I don't know how authors keep coming up with more, and if they're even making this attempt to come up with something that's better and better literarily than what we've seen 100 times before.
Yes.
Once you To Kill a Mockingbird, I think was said it as much as anybody could say up to that moment.
Yes.
Now we need to start. Let's start
learn to
getting
live
past
together.
that.
Yes, exactly. And I think that millennials people my age are not racist. We're not homophobic.
Well, somebody is.
Some people are, but maybe that's because maybe they're going after the freaking children now, and they shouldn't have done that. I think the LGBT is shooting itself in the foot by going after children.
Well,
why did they do that?
What do you mean by that?
They are going after children.
Going after them?
Yes.
You mean with intent to molest?
No, they're going after them. Parents in schools are teaching kids, hey, do you want to change your gender? Here, take this hormone blocker that will castrate you.
Okay,
really? Children can't make fucking decisions when they're 7 years old. It's disgusting.
To whatever extent that's actually true.
Speaking of the molesting, have you been hearing about these minor attracted persons? All these people,
pedophiles.
Well, that was the original word, but now on TikTok, they're calling them minor attracted persons. They're being sympathetic. Isn't that sick?
That's pretty. Where did you see that?
Oh, it's all over the place. And then drag queen story hour. You know about that? Drag queens are teaching kindergartners to be okay.
I think I have seen something about that.
I mean, what do we do with these people?
I don't know.
What do we do with them?
I know that's carrying things a little too far. I agree.
It is, and it makes you wonder. When was gay marriage legalized? 2013 or something?
Something like that.
What did people used to say? If we do this, it'll lead to this.
The slippery slope.
Slippery slope. Now look. And I'm not, I think gay people, if you want to get married, go ahead, do it. But it just begs the question. And there's a term for that. It's called ad hoc. I think ad hoc means I don't know. I can't explain it. Basically, it means, okay, here's an example of ad hoc. In the 50s, China had a communist revolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now China's almost going to be the world superpower. So somebody left a comment and they said, well, China did become communist and now they're about to become the superpower. So therefore, communism that's ad hoc. This happens, therefore this happened. So,
it's not ad hoc, but it's
post hoc. It's
non sequitur. It's a non sequitur.
Exactly. All right, let's see what else we have. I don't know. Let's see. How long have we been going? Okay, we've been going for 52 minutes. Eric, you got anything to add?
I'm sure I would if I had a little more time to think about it.
Are you pro-capitalism?
I don't think I can answer that question as stated. Again, capitalism is a great system for generating wealth, but it's necessary to, just unfettered capitalism leads to late stage capitalism.
Yes.
Capitalism has to be regulated, and it's part of capitalism's default position to resist regulation of any kind, because it stands in the way between them and more wealth and power. But fuck them. They have to. It has to be regulated.
You know what? I hate the word regulation, but
I bet you do.
I almost agree with you. What do you think about this? Have you ever heard the quote? And this is usually a right-wing quote. Capitalism has brought more people out of poverty than any other economic system. Do you believe that?
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, I do too. Because
but any other economic system, like what? There's
communism.
Communism. Well, no. But the object of communism, the stated object of communism, was not to lift more people out of poverty than ever before. At least not. It was to create a classless society.
Yeah, with
the same
pure
thing,
equality.
Yeah.
But you want to know something interesting? Sorry, did you want to keep going?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so all the communists, the really far left communism, like Bosch and all those, like real gritty socialist communists, they believe that racism is inherent. You can't control it. It's like built into you. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what we were saying just
exactly.
a moment ago.
So they say we need to abolish capitalism and go to communism where everybody's equal, right? And in the past, communism, it does make everybody equally fucking poor. They're all poor. So if we did...
a lot of people would prefer that. They'd rather be poor if everybody else was poor than live in a very structured society with people at the very top.
But there will always be hierarchies.
Well,
do you agree?
Yes, there will. Even the communists had a very structured hierarchy.
Oh, yeah. So, get this. There's a lot of racial inequality, wealth inequality in capitalist America. If there was a Bolshevik communist revolution, and then we were all equal and standing in bread lines, that inherent racism, white people would still be top dog, right? Yeah, they would be, because we're so used to capitalism. If white people are so racist that we just look at that black guy. If that's what it was, and then we turned into a communist shithole where everyone's poor, white people would still carry that like supremacy that they claim we have.
Oh, they would still be racist.
Yes.
If you were a racist before, you're going to be a racist after that. But the object of a classless society, insofar as that goes, isn't to solve the problem of racism. It's to solve the problem of income disparity. That's all. A lot of people thought one would lead to the other, and it might. I mean, if everybody really was on an equal footing economically, maybe we would start to, come to other kinds of common visions too. But
we'd all be miserable and we would have no freedom.
Well, I won't even say we wouldn't have any freedom. We might have all kinds of freedom in a classless society, depending on how that's managed. I don't think a classless society is possible because human beings are inherently structural and even hierarchical, and there will always be people who will rise to the top and exercise more than their share of authority and wealth over others.
Even in a communist country.
Sure, even in a communist country.
Mm-hmm. It's dangerous, man. I'm one of those people that thinks I'm a free speech absolutist, but I think Marxism is dangerous. I don't think that we should censor it, but I think all the people that are against Marxism are getting censored online right now. So, you know what I mean? So we can't fight back. We can't fight back because we're being censored and called alt-right white supremacists. You know what I mean?
Who's we? White people?
Just people who think like me.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm surprised. I keep wondering why we haven't been censored or canceled or shut down by now. But we just don't have that much of a following.
We might be shadow banned to some degree because on our podcast channel, a lot of this, we talk about conspiracies, which is a no-no, and AI can pick that up. It's not like a human being, you know what I mean? So I don't know. And today what we talked about, I don't know. We talk about real issues, political issues. YouTube doesn't want that, so they probably blacklist you if you talk, you know what I mean? All right, Eric.
Okay.
We got an hour. I think that was a great episode.
That was a good one.
It flowed. I don't even think I have to do any editing. I messed up that one part, but I'm just going to keep it in. Because one of the problems I have is if we mess up too much and I have to edit it, I'll just be too lazy to edit it and I procrastinate and then I never put the episode up. So with this one, I'm just going to post it. So, Eric, I believe we will have some viewers soon. We post our podcast on BitChute, but people don't like us there. One famous comment was, 2 douches, 1 cup. I know you don't get that reference, but either way, we were called 2 douches.
Oh.
But I love it. I like it. I like bad comments. It makes me laugh.
Yeah, bad comments can. I think some people might be attracted to things to get bad comments. Yeah,
it's constructive criticism.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, you will come up with the next topic, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to California this week, right?
Yeah, how long are you going?
Just 6 days.
Cool.
And I'm really stressed out about it. I'm sure I'll have a good time when I'm there, but I mean, the transit, the arranging the flight and everything, is just so many things that could go wrong with some. If you do that kind of thing a lot.
Yeah.
I'm being coached by my pal Mike through this. And
how much does it cost to fly there?
well, for this trip I'm taking, it was $300 and some bucks. But he had to book that like five months in advance.
So it's cheaper? I think it's cheaper when you do it in advance, right?
Well, yeah, that's part of the point. Yeah, definitely.
So 300 one way?
No, that's
Both ways? That's not bad at all.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
What part of California?
Bay Area, South Bay Area.
What is that?
San Jose.
San Jose?
Yeah.
I don't even know anything about that. I don't think I ever even heard of it.
You never heard of San Jose?
Not really. What is it
Well,
near?
it's in the heart of Silicon Valley.
Oh, Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's where I lived for over 25 years.
Well, Eric, I hope you have a safe trip, and I hope your plane doesn't inevitably get 9/11.
Yeah, we all hope that, but
we can't lose you,
you
Eric.
never know.
Because our podcast up next to the toppermost of the poppermost.
Hey, you know what? I don't think I've never heard a single one of your podcasts, your individual podcasts. Is that basically digital dystopia? Is that what I search for?
Yeah. But put the word podcast at the end. All right, Eric, I gotta hit stop. Say goodbye to the audience.
Okay. So long.
Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope we pissed half of you off. That suggests that we're on the right track, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna say what I want from now on.
Yeah. Oh, good.
All right, there we go. Good episode, Eric. Sometimes I say that when it's not a good one, but I really.
This time you really mean it.
Yeah.